all of these sacred ways that we learn to make alliances with the world around us, this gives us meaning. And this teaches us the sacredness of life, the original instructions to respect an ant in the same way we respect a human being, to observe the movement of a bird, the song of a bird, and to allow all of that to be medicine for us. And so we can come out of this doomsday reality that many are living in, and we can create a life of connection, hope, harmony, love, faith, charity. To teach really our children, our future generations, the true story of a nation, a country that is native country, that belongs all of these sacred places and beautiful national parks that are so well kept and preserved under the care of the government. All of those are sacred tribal lands. Beautiful and sacred work, and it's here, it's coming out into the world because it's time, because these people, many of them wouldn't share because of everything that happened to them. They were like, you know what, white people don't deserve this wisdom. However, we all need to remember something that we once knew before it was stolen from us. Sometimes it's overwhelming to think how far we are from recognizing the sanctity of life, and how our development, people who believe we're so ahead in our development, believe that just destroying everything to turn into money is something smart. And then look at the indigenous people, calling them savages, and the people they're preserving. Because they know that one day, when it all ends, the wars are going to be over water and over food. But so these elders give me so much hope for the world, and these sacred ceremonies give me so much hope for the world.
Welcome to your journey to find true tranquility with the Tranquility Magazine podcast. With your host, Jasmine Maya Royce. Today's episode featuring. You can find more information about tranquility on our website, tranquilitymagazine.com.
Today, I'm so overwhelmed with excitement to have Vivien Vilela. Has been with for 10 years of experience pioneering ethical relationships with Indigenous peoples across the Americas. She has played a critical role in supporting the preservation of the Indigenous cultures and global grassroots efforts to protect and restore wild spaces. Born and raised in Brazil, Vivien has dedicated her life to her spiritual studies under the mentorship of some of the most respected Indigenous elders from South, Central, and North America. Through this work, Vivien founded Aniwa, an international platform that shares Indigenous wisdom and amplifies the voices of Indigenous leaders through the online educational portal and the annual gathering and in-person retreats. She is an author or collector of the book from the Aniwan Council of Elders, The Sacred Ceremony of the Sacred Earth. I am so delighted to have you today, Vivien. And my first question is always, what is your current mantra or state of mind?
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I guess my mantra is always to live in reciprocity, with all creation, to live in reciprocity with Mother Earth, with the divine, and to never take anything for granted.
It's a beautiful reminder for all of us to understand the precious moments that our Earth provides for us and how much care it needs, and to understand our equal reciprocity of giving what we receive.
Yeah, in our existence, we take so much in order to survive. Water, food, everything we have is made from Mother Earth. So it's so important to put it back so that we never run out.
Yeah, and especially now in the current state. And it was jarring for me when I moved back to the States to understand that we are flooded with a consumerist society in need of wants of so many things that we don't really truly need. And to understand what that has, it's equal when we take more and give less.
Yeah, unfortunately, modern society is a society that is not taught connection with the divine, is not taught connection with the earth. Perhaps through religion, yes, but not through the elements, the very elements that give us life. So that simple action of going outside barefoot, sitting and contemplating a mountain, a tree, connecting with these beings that are teachers, that are wisdom keepers of Mother Earth. And whenever we are attuned and connected to that energy, we realize how little we actually need to be happy, how little we actually need to be fulfilled. But whenever there is something missing inside, whenever we're not feeling that feeling of fulfillment, of self-love, of joy, of connection, of being full, then society tells us we need to fill in that gap with material things. But then we can only acquire, but the gap never fills up unless we do it from inside, right?
Yeah, I think it's so important that I've reflected in the idea that, the magic of the art of nature is the most beautiful things to see, especially when it's living and active, that it is breathing with us and understanding those important moments that you're in a place and time to appreciate what is outside of us while we are inside of it, so to speak, in a way that it's value of things that are not ownership, but appreciation. And I think it's sublimely true to understand how we've survived every generation by taking from Mother Earth and not respecting the properties and how we are, mirroring what we get, what we give. But I want you to talk about how you founded the Aniwa Society of Elders and what their mission is and how you collected so much knowledge from.
Sure. Well, Aniwa, it's interesting because it has a spirit of its own. This organization is a very magical spirit that I was just very, very lucky and blessed to have been bestowed this mission to organize things in the physical so that all of the spiritual can come together with the wisdom of these incredible elders that we're so lucky to work with and so long. And first, well, I met my former mission partner that I started this with in plant medicine gathering festival in Brazil, in the same place where I met my husband. And the first leader we started working with, this is how Aniwa was born. But before that, there were a lot of studies I had been doing, immersing myself in this wisdom. I spent 28 days by myself meditating in nature, guided by a teacher. And in that moment, nature told me, everything you want to do, it's not your path. At the time, I wanted to be an actress. And so nature said, you will use media to raise awareness for the world. You're going to start doing projects to help nature right now, not one day when you become, a big actor as you envision. Forget about all of that. It's going to be now. So I left that, it was 28 days, everything opened for me. I could see the connection between myself and the trees and all that was alive. And it was a really pivotal moment in my life because I had already been dedicating my entire life to learning. But I thought, that was just my spiritual path. And I thought my spiritual path was separated from my, work or life path, what I needed to do in the world. And in that experience, I realized that it was all one thing, that I could not be separated from this, that everything had to be it. Yeah. And 3 months after that, I met my former mission partner in this festival, in this medicine gathering in Brazil. Met my husband and met the first leader we started working with, who was Ninawa from the Hunikuin people. And 3 months after that experience, we were in the Amazon. We had raised funds online via Facebook to purchase an artesian well, to build an artesian well for them, for his village, because he didn't have water to drink, and to film something there with them, a little film. And so we did that for many years after that. It was when it was born, our foundation, our first foundation that we created. And so after that, we started working with Indigenous peoples, just doing projects in their villages, spending time with them, studying with them, doing dietas. And
What is
so
dieta?
dieta is a spiritual practice that you do. It can be for cleansing, can be for studying, for learning in the spiritual path, for making an alliance with a certain plant. Is basically you go there for a certain amount of time. It could be 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, a year, or even some leaders do it for 5 years, where you are isolated from everyone in the forest, eating very minimally, not eating any salt or sugar. And different peoples do it in different ways, but it's basically a fast, and it's a deep study to learn and to purify, first of all. And after that, a couple of years after we had been working really hard with the foundation, one person that I met in London that donated funds to our foundation asked me to come for a meeting, that he wanted to do an event. And in that meeting, we were discussing something for him. And the idea about Aniwa gathering came through. I had never envisioned it, I dreamt about it. It's just the idea came through in the moment I was talking to this person. Then he was very interested and to do it, but he was like, I don't understand anything about this. Would you be willing to do it with me? And I said, of course, it would be a dream. And so long story short, it gets closer to the event. He realizes this has nothing to do with what he does. And he was like, you know what? I'm just going to donate the funds to your foundation. And you do this by yourself. You deserve it. So it was the first gift of spirit to manifest the first Aniwa gathering in 2017 in Ibiza. Okay. And so through that, I was like, okay, now I need to find all the elders. And so through the people that I had already met in that gathering, through my husband, who was then not my husband, I invited him. He's also an Indigenous leader. And so asking around leaders that I already knew and friends, we came up with a team of 25 elders for the first Aniwa gathering in Ibiza. This is how it all started. And the first one was very, very challenging. It nearly imploded. We had so many problems and challenges. And it was one of the toughest lessons of my life. And it's really beautiful because we're still here. All the ones that were there then are still with us.
Yeah, I mean, having the network to find those people alone, to understand the resources that are out there when you don't know which direction, like the spirit, so to speak, would call you, to find those or serendipitous moments or happenstance that you just arrive at the right place, the right time with the right people to find you or meet you. And it's an important factor that you have collected so many elders from all over. So can you break down some of the elders that you have interviewed in the book and you still work with today?
Yes. So all of the elders that are in the book are some of the elders that have been coming to Aniwa Gathering for several years. Some of them were with us since 2017, like Mona Polaka, for instance, the Tewa Hopi Havasupai elder. She is an absolute legend. I look up to her so much. She's my auntie. We made relations like that. She calls me niece, and she calls my children grandchildren. She comes here to Mexico, where I live, every year to pray for the children. And she spends her life advocating for the water around the world. She attends a lot of UN meetings, and she shares the wisdom about the water all around the earth, advocating for Indigenous rights, for rights of Indigenous communities. And she's an author in the field of human rights for Indigenous peoples. And she's a force. She's absolutely incredible. She's also part of a fund to protect the medicine. So she advocates to preserve the sacred medicines of the Indigenous peoples, for the Native Americans, which is the peyote. And she taught me so much about our relationship with the water, how sacred the water is, how much memory the water carries, how it was our first home. in
Mm-hmm.
9 months in the womb of our mothers, and how it follows us, our lives, and teaches us and cleanses us and purifies us every day. Because, we have the same amount of water that the earth has.
Mm-hmm.
And we've lost that knowing that we women are the water carriers, we are the water barriers, and it is
Mm-hmm.
our mission to pray for the water and to keep the water for our future generations as well. So this is a very beautiful and powerful teaching that, I learned from Mona and
Mm-hmm.
for so many of our other elders as well, to take a glass of water in the morning, the first thing you do is pray for that water, so
Mm-hmm.
that you energize that water with your words, with your thoughts. And whenever you drink that water, the molecules in it carry those prayers, that harmony. So when you drink it, it harmonizes, it cleanses your emotions, it makes you be more still, have more clarity, to then be able to go on with your day with that inner peace, with that inner clarity. No, it's so beautiful. Another teaching that Mona also shares, like the first thing you do in the morning, go out to greet Father Sun. Rub your hands, put your palms up, grab some of that light, of that energy, and then put it on yourself, so that you have that clarity, that light illuminate your thoughts that day. So that bless yourself, bless your body, and you can actually feel it.
Mm-hmm.
That energy that carries you forward in your day. So Mona is so wonderful. And we have the mamos, right, that are also part of the book. The mamos are some spiritual leaders from 4 tribes in the Sierra Nevada in Colombia: the Arhuaco, the Wiwa, the Cancuamo, and the Kogi. They work together. And the Mamo in the book is Mamo Rodrigo. He's from the Wiwa people, and he's a teacher, and he speaks all of the 4 languages of the Tiyuna people. So he gathers all of the Mamos together, all of their stories together. And so he also shared a very important practice, which is a spiritual cleansing practice, because all of us are spirits in a human suit, right? And we acquire energy everywhere that we go. And sometimes we're feeling not so great, we're feeling very heavy, we're feeling irritated. Sometimes we don't know why. Why? Because we've been to a place that this was very heavy energy and we acquired some energy. So how do we cleanse it? And spiritual cleanse is just as important as taking a shower, as keeping our physical vessel cleansed. That hygiene is just as important to have that with our spirit, right? So that we can always feel good, feel centered, be in harmony. So he teaches a very important cleansing practice in the book, and also a practice for the spirit of alcohol, how so many people struggle with that spirit, how so many people have problems with alcoholism or in their families. So in the book, there is also a spiritual pagamento for the spirit of alcohol to balance that out. And so many powerful teachings in there.
I think it's always wise to understand, like, when I relate to the idea that I've been working on it for a long time in the power of water, where you started, the idea that water flows in us, is part of us, and then moves through us. And then how you interact with the water will change the particles. That most of the things that you are speaking about have now been scientifically proven, which is a great jump in our realization, because I spend time with my water in a way for the first drink of the morning. And then when you're talking about, Mona said, to go outside and appreciate the sun, we need the vitamin D. We need the understanding that it recharges us, rebalances us, and then reminds us that we need to grow under the sun like a plant, that we are here. And then we, need the light to survive and live better or stronger. And then the cleanse, you just touched a note for me that I just went somewhere yesterday. And because I'm empathic and highly sensitive, I did not prepare myself for the environment that I was going into. And I crashed out. I was like, ooh, this is too much for me emotionally. too much of a scene, that I'm not really ready for all the emotions that I'm feeling for everyone here, but that I need to go separate myself to re-cleanse and reset, because it's important when you're not ready for certain environments, the effects that it can have on you, and then to kind of balance yourself out when you take what I've learned, taking those emotional baggage from somebody else that's not you, and how you get rid of that or let it go. And that's a hard lesson to be learned, or have the opportunities to be taught by someone that you found, to share that knowledge and that wisdom, and the idea that how sacred it is to understand your body and what your body needs.
Yeah, nowadays these lessons don't come around very often, but these for Indigenous communities are the basics of life, right? How do you set your shield? How do you have your own protection before going out at home? How do you shake those things off? How do you connect with different allies, plant allies, rock allies, crystals that may help you in this journey? How do you bless your car so that, you know, you won't get in an accident? They all do that. And so in the book, there are many amazing practices for that. How do you approach a crystal to help you? How do you cleanse that crystal afterwards? And all of these things, powerful, very simple, yet incredibly powerful and needed teachings for us to live a balanced and harmonious life.
Yeah, just some awareness that is missing from our, internal catalog that we don't understand. Like, I was reading the element that she was talking about, collecting a rock and spending time to connect yourself with the rock and appreciate the rock. And then, I was like, I already do this, but I didn't realize that it's like it's in my geno somewhere, but it's not taught to me that I have the outward connection to understand where these things come from. But it's still kind of part of my, ideas in there. But it's like now it's out in the ether. Like, it's been there forever, that I'm just clicking in to figure out what is already part of our ingrained understanding that we have depleted and not connected to in a long time. But there's so many beautiful ceremonies inside, with prayers also, that they start off by giving you words, because I believe words have power. And the words you speak have the rhythm of your own cadence, temperature, and beat of its own, where you need to speak your truth in order to get it received by the environment, Mother Earth, universe, whatever you want to connect it to, and how you relate to it. Father, Son, Mother Earth, all those elements is important to understand what words are of value, and what ceremonies can I reach to heal me and the earth itself.
Yeah, I think we all inherently feel the power, right, of nature, of the elements. We feel good when we go out in nature, when we disconnect, because when we are on our phone and technology all the time, all of those frequencies are depleting our own spirit and life force, all the electromagnetic frequencies. And I think that's one of the big reasons why we have more and more depression out in the world, is because human beings have forgotten that we are Earth, and without her, we can't live. And so all of the teachings in this book, they're very simple rituals in order for us to remember what we inherently already know. But sometimes some people sometimes feel silly. Oh, I'm not going to do that. This is silly. It's not going to work. But in the book, through the stories of the elders, through their way of being and speaking, they remind us of something that is being embedded in us, because we are all children of the divine. We are all children of the earth. And so it's just the how-to. It's just that here is a roadmap, or how we can go back to where we come from, and how we can basically weed our gardens, remove the little weeds that we acquired through life that are taking the oxygen from our plants away, so that all these beautiful flowers can blossom inside of our internal garden, right? It's all about that. The book, the practices are all about removing destructive thought forms, destructive ways of communicating or feeling, and replacing them with something more beautiful, with food, for our plants, right? Food for our roses to blossom.
Yeah, it's important to understand, like I call it, our body is our temple, and how we take care of it in a way that is important for how our well-being is going to manifest in the future. How we take care of ourselves and make sure that we're the best form that we can be, and how we respect, like you're talking about cleansing and showering and all those things, that you have to take care of the vessel that you're in. You get one in this lifetime, so enjoy it and use it wisely. But in that, it's also the elements that you're talking about, working on your mental health, electricity. I always say, like, proverbially, before I got to this idea, I said we're a battery in the day. Like, we have about as much battery from rest and, time that we spent working on ourselves, that we have this much. And then every moment in the day, it gets less and less from interactions, and then you want to receive enough throughout your day to recharge your battery, to give all your energy to someone else or something else, or an electronic thing. You're depleting yourself. Exactly what you're talking about, that you feel lesser and like you have no bandwidth anymore. You feel exhausted, and you just have not rebooted, that you can't feel what's missing or lacking by a device or sometimes people. It comes from within. I wanted to ask, you mentioned it in the book and I had to watch it myself, The Gathering. It broke my heart. I always say that history was written by the winners, never by the losers. And a lot of our history is never taught in classrooms, that we have been non-educated. I took an entire class from California history because I was born here. Some brief ideas about Indigenous people. I know about the Chumash that are not far away from me in Santa Barbara area. And the Yukon, I'm not going to say it right because I always mess up names in a way, but the I'm not saying, yeah, Yucatan tribe, because they're from Northern California and where my family is. So I related to that in the story, but the sacred food idea too, what it brought across for me, that my father's a horticulturist and I come earth planters. So it was relationship for the lost art of the food and the value of nutrition that your body needs, that they were connecting culturally. And one of the elders that was in that was also featured in your book. You want to talk about her a little bit?
Twyla
Yeah.
Casador?
Mm-hmm. Yes. She's based in the United States, and her tribe is...
She's from the Apache people, the Indak people. And she's a really wonderful woman. She teaches her tribe about their native foods, about foraging and all of the foods and medicines that come from the region, which is an extremely, extremely important knowledge, because unfortunately, a lot of Native American tribes have lost, a lot of tribes all around the world, but I think, in the United States, some of the worst situation with the indigenous peoples there, because they were all robbed of their territory and just thrown in some reservation. And a lot of these reservations, they've had chemicals sprayed all over the crops, all over the waters. And so a lot, even in Twyla's reservation, they found Agent Orange. I think it's called the chemical in some of their...
They were using it as a pesticide after the war.
Yeah, really, really horrendous things, And when peoples have lost the connection with the traditional foods, and outside the reservations, all they can find is processed food. You can't find any fruits or fresh vegetables near most of Native American reservations. And most of them have a casino outside. And, they're only encouraged to drink alcohol and go gambling, and all of this was a plan to obliterate, the native people of the United States. In California, the Golden Rush, the government was paying 3 times the minimum age for a head of an Indian.
Yes.
And that was, the government. It's really a really sad story built upon massacre. And I think, we need to change that. We really need to change that collectively, to teach really our children, our future generations, the true story of a nation, a country that is native country, that belongs all of these sacred places and beautiful national parks that are so well kept and preserved under the care of the government. All of those are sacred tribal lands. No, and
Yeah.
so I think it's so important that people like Twyla come forth to teach her own people about their story and the power of their sacred foods, their traditional foods. And like that Patrick Scott, who's also in the book, has an amazing work with his tribe, with the Diné tribe in Mesa, Arizona. And he's, you know, recovered a body of water that had dried out. And he's
Yeah.
building their traditional hogans and teaching their youth about their history. And yeah, it's really, really beautiful and sacred work. And it's here, it's coming out into the world because it's
Yeah.
time, because these people, you know, many of them wouldn't share because of everything that happened to them. They were like, you know
Yeah.
what, white people don't deserve this
Mhm.
wisdom. However, we all need to remember something
Yes.
that we've once knew
Mhm.
before it was stolen from us.
Yeah.
You know, everyone who forgot had
Mhm.
it robbed by someone. There was some
Yeah.
colonizer that arrived and colonized.
Mhm.
And so we are going back and looking at the elders, because the only way that we can move forward is if we move back, if we look back to all of the people that have known how to live in harmony and reciprocity with the earth, all the people that have known how to tend to Mother Earth.
Mhm.
The Twyla teaches as well, you know, a really beautiful practice in the book about how to let go of grief, because
Yeah.
sometimes we get so stuck in grief that it taints our reality,
Yeah.
and we are just get stuck in this blame game, like many natives,
Mhm.
rightfully so, you
Yes.
know, are in so much pain they don't think other people deserve to have this wisdom
Yes.
because of everything that happened to them. But some of them, like Twyla, like the ones that are in the book, have moved past their grief of everything that happened to their people, and now they're here today to model to us how we can do the same, and to model to us how we can find that resilience within our spirit to move through the most painful lessons with the sacred practices, with faith, with connection to Mother Earth. She teaches how to do that with rocks. How
Yeah.
can we release grief with the power of the rocks, which are some of the most resilient beings on this planet, right? The ones that have been here from the beginning of time.
The foundation.
Yeah, and so finding that, releasing that grief and finding that unconditional love in our hearts for ourselves so that we can manifest that out into the world, right?
Yeah. I think it's the timeline in a way that about healing past generational trauma is coming forward for a lot of people willing to accept that journey and willing to make peace with it themselves in our generational trauma that is so deeply ingrained in our DNA. It goes past our timeline now all the way into the ancestors that came before in multiple timelines. And you are here in this time to be that person to heal that trauma for yourself and give peace to the idea that now the knowledge can be accepted by others that did not get that tutelage or didn't know, even Native Americans that we have here that were not given guidance or tutelage or lost their language. I figured out there was a linguistic professor that came to teach, I believe, one of the Native American tribes their original language. And he was not from here or had that background, but he was obsessed with linguists, like in language and the formation of words, that he was willing to teach that. And I thought that was a profound understanding because there was a book that I read for a while ago, and she was spending time learning her indigenous language throughout the book. And I thought that was a beautiful thing to not lose the words that are powerful, because everyone that's been impacted by other cultures kind of grabbing what they wanted out of a land or a place that was your own before is a hard thing, that it ruins the language. And especially for here in the United States, a lot of the indigenous people were taken to schooling to be taught English and never their native tongue. And I think the hardest lesson that I figured out when I was reflecting on my tutelage in the idea that we're not taught certain things here. And you were saying before about the well-maintained national parks, and they are part of Native American lands. And the hardest one for me when I found out about Mount Rushmore here.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, I had no idea because it's before my generation, my time, So, and then being taught, you would never know that. And then when you go back to dig in different history that is not applicable in, standardized school teaching, they would never say that. They just want you to be proud of it. When you're like, what an awful thing, like to ruin something that's been here before all of us.
To
To do
bomb a holy sacred mountain.
Yeah.
And put the face of some,
Yeah.
it's
Leaders at one point to, make America their own. And I always reflect on that idea that it's truly heartbreaking to understand when you know the history to figure out what has come before. And even watching certain ideas that I've been reflecting in our current state and their limited knowledge about true history that we never know about because it's filled with shame for everyone, people that have imparted it and people that have been affected by it. So the shame stays in the closet where no one discusses it or brings it up because that grief, like you say, for the rocks is not really there to grieve because we're not taught to know. And the lost knowledge of that history is a heartbreaking truth. But in that, like doing this ceremony, finding, I was thinking about it when you had one about the eagles and the feathers, and different tribes have different feathers. And it always warns to say, don't purchase a feather for someone else. And I'm like, yes, some people want to try to get into the ceremonies and you can purchase the feathers, but I think it's a gift from a bird when you find one. And I collect them too, but I don't like eagles are kind of a lost art here. They're very rare to see or find. And the birds is related to your air when you talked about the ceremonies of air and breath. You want to go into that and explore it a little bit more?
sure. Yeah, it's sometimes it's overwhelming to think how far we are from recognizing the sanctity of life and how our development and people who believe we're so ahead in our development believe that just destroying everything to turn into money is something smart. And then look at the indigenous people, calling them savages, and the people that are preserving because they know that one day when it all ends, the wars are going to be over water and over food. But
True.
so these elders give me so much hope for the world, and these sacred ceremonies give me so much hope for the world because on one side, I'm watching people that are just living in suffering and have lost all hope, and all they do is watch the news and get entangled in negativity and feeling hopeless and in despair, angry. But then on the other side, I'm watching all of the people that are coming to the gathering, all of the people that are coming to the ceremonies to do their part. And whenever we're doing our part, we feel so happy, fulfilled, and at peace to know that whatever way it goes, it will be okay because we are doing our part. And so, yeah, with the feathers, to learn to work with something so sacred that you find, you may find a gift from a bird and learn to move energy, to cleanse, to smudge with that through the book, or learn to make relations. There is one about making relations with the rainbow. There is all of these sacred ways that we learn to make alliances with the world around us. This gives us meaning. And this teaches us the sacredness of life, the original instructions to respect an ant in the same way we respect a human being, to observe the movement of a bird, the song of a bird, and to allow all of that to be medicine for us. And so we can come out of this doomsday reality that many are living in, and we can create a life of connection, hope, harmony, love, faith, charity for ourselves. And it's really simple. It's just we need to take responsibility for our well-being. We need to take responsibility for our thoughts. We need to take responsibility for the way we live our lives, for the actions we take. And whenever we can incorporate prayer in our life, and prayer, many people say to us they get put off by this word because they associate it with religion. Religion, if religion is teaching good values to someone, it's good for them. If religion is helping them move forward in their path, is good for them. But if some people don't necessarily connect with religion, prayer is just communicating with the divine. It's communicating with nature. You know, God has many names, thousands of names that cultures around the world call him, her, the sacred dual energy that moves all. And whenever we pray, we're simply connecting to the source of wisdom from which we come from. That is only one. We have one father, one mother. We call and see them in many different forms, shapes, names, teachings, religions. But, you know, the core of every single religion, the core, you know, many have been contaminated by humans, but the very core from where religions were born and the very core of every spiritual tradition is love, is respect for all life, is respect towards one another, and is, you know, putting out your hand for others that are in need, and living a life of balance, of respect, of devotion. And this is what prayer is communicating to the sacred, to the divine, to Mother Nature, to Mother Earth, and asking for help. Because we can't do it alone. We weren't born alone. We are in a single individual floating alone in this ocean of consciousness, right? We are all spirits that come from one source. We're all spirits in a human suit. And so we need to be moved by spirit. And spirit is not going to interfere in our reality because there is free will. In fact, the way we want to live. If we want to live disconnected, they will allow us to fall flat on our face time after time until we decide it's time to change.
Yeah.
So whenever we choose to connect, to pray, to harmonize, to ask for help, oh my God, life becomes so much easier.
It does. You are so right. There's so many truths in what you just said about the understanding. You know, I understand that the jar back from the idea of prayer and as a cadence of word that you're familiar with. Sometimes I call nature my church. That's when I'm out. Not really raising that idea, but that is church for everyone. That's an open environment to appreciate and do your prayers. And movement prayers are like meditation. There's so many different words that mean the same thing sometimes when you start to research them and start to understand a myriad of collection of words that have the same meaning, but this different wording. And then in that truth, there's so much understanding to work on your inner self, and you can't do it alone. You're not built to do it alone. And the Native American culture teaches you about tribes. When we're a singularity, we're ingrained with the idea of a singularity, our me, mine, and I. So we're that here in this culture, in this understanding of the Americas in the United States are about the singularity. And that ruins the idea of the tribal understanding that it takes, I think the old proverb is, it takes the tribe to build a family or to connect or raise a child. You need more than you. Like, you can't do this journey alone. And most people haven't been taught the guidance, and I had to learn it myself, how to ask for help and need to understand that it's okay to ask when I need some help doing something or working on something or anything like that. Is important to understand that you are of value, of note, and worthy of asking, because people can't assume to read your mind if you don't know or don't tell them what's going on, that you can be assistance of service. And we were raised in my family to be of service all the time, to do acts of service, to take care of other people, to make sure that they're okay, which is reversed when you're like, oh, I need an act of service myself. Which is not really the time, like the type of understanding that you're like, oh, I'm here to take care of others, but I have to remember to either take care of myself or be willing to ask for assistance. And it's a very important thing that it's duality. Masculine and the feminine, all those things have a harmony that they have to flow into and connect with to understand the ultimate balance of being in the same river or the journey or the air to flow together.
Yeah, you know, it's a very beautiful teaching that is in the book is about the breath of beingness, you know, is understanding the sacred energy and that dance that we have in each moment. to inhale. Each moment we're inhaling the breath of Creator, this divine air, the purest source of energy. And that air has the power to cleanse us, right? Whenever we inhale, we're bringing in life into our lungs. And whenever we exhale, we can let go of all that no longer serves us. So many ancient wisdom traditions have breathing practices. And so book, Grandmother Lana Walker, she explains how to develop the sacred relationship with your breath. To just inhale, giving gratitude for that life-giving breath, and to then training our thoughts, because our thoughts are everything, right? Our thoughts create our reality. And our thoughts is the most powerful spiritual tool we have been given in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So any master that has ever lived knew how to train their minds. Any spiritual master, right? And so whenever we can, in every moment, come back to that gratitude of just taking that breath and then having that awareness, oh, just with one exhale, I can let go of all of these burdens that are in my mind, recenter myself, and be in a space of gratitude, and be in a space of sacred exchange, right, with Mother Earth. Or that awareness, I can just go outside and put my palms on Mother Earth, ask for permission if she will cleanse me. And through my palms, which I have energy centers, we all do in the center of our palms, release all of that heaviness that we feel into Mother Earth. This simple act changes everything, changes our reality moment by moment, right? And our spiritual path is the same as learning any skill. It takes time, it takes discipline, love, care, practice, so that this becomes our norm, right? This becomes our way of life. This becomes our way of thinking at all times. If we can start with 5 minutes a day, we all have 5 minutes. I know we are very busy people doing a lot of things, working many jobs, but we all have 5 minutes. We can all wake up 5 minutes earlier to do one little thing that will nurture our spirits and that will change our lives, right?
Important to understand the value of rewiring your mental state and your wording that you choose inside yourself, and then taking those moments to breathe deep and be there. And then it changes your whole day in a way that the connection, your vibration of yourself and who you relate or speak to is altered by the fact that you spent those 5 minutes just to kind of reset yourself, to find a balance, to not go too fast, slow enough to be here and be present more than. And then spending time with the breath is an ancient tradition for myriad of selections of truth. And I think it's very important to understand how valuable that is and to revisit and make a habit out of it. But we always have time if we find time, and the difference between having time and finding time is two different things. And I always value, I make time for those things because I think it's important.
No, we all have time to give advice to someone else. You know, your best friend calls you, oh my God, my life is so difficult, please tell me what to do. You will make 1 hour to be on the phone with that friend, right?
Yeah.
But how many of us give as much time to ourselves as we give to other people?
That is a very poignant truth to remind everyone out there that you just need. I watched someone the other day, and the idea that you have to be at the A game to be present. And by the A game, meaning you take yourself and responsibility of yourself first, to make sure that you show up. Someone taught me about the idea that you show up with your feet. I didn't really understand it until I thought about it for a while. You show up when you arrive, when you're there, like you made the gesture to like transport yourself or get there in a way that someone needs your help, but you have to be at your best game in order to be ready, to be doing things for them, that you've taken your self-care and you have a very full glass, when you're not depleting, that you're half glass and you're trying to give what you don't have anymore, energetically speaking. So I think it's very important for us to understand that you are of value and you are worth taking those moments to make sure that you're okay first before you give on to others what you do not have.
Yeah, treat it as a business meeting, you know? You wouldn't miss a meeting with an investor for your company.
Yeah.
The way you see yourself is the way people will see you. If you don't invest in yourself first, no one is going to want to invest in you.
True.
So treat that self-care as you would the most important business meeting of your life, because it is the most important meeting of your life.
It is. I mean, like, you know, you only got one of you, and you still have to be you and understand you and know your value to pitch something or be in a meeting or be able to, like, you know, elevator pitch someone to get into your boat. Like, this is what I'm wanting to do. This is where I'm going, and this is the outcome that I want. And then you have to believe in those words enough in yourself that you're of value, that you can have those. And you see it or you visualize it, and then you create it, as you said, manifest it and make it full. But you can't do that if all day long you're going, oh, I'm not good enough. I could do better. This is bad. This is not a good idea. I can't risk it. There's all kinds of reasons in your mind that will stop you or prevent you. The thing that gets in your way the most is you.
Absolutely, 100%. I need to cleanse and scrub that machine, the thoughts, the mind, the spirits, the emotions. All of these practices in the book are for fine-tuning ourselves so that we can get out of being a victim of life to being a creator of life, right? To being in the flow of spirit, stop swimming against the tide.
Very true. So my last questions are, the first one is, and you already touched on it right now, what you said, what was the best advice you've ever received?
To be aware of my thoughts. I think one of the most powerful teachings that I have received was the power of thought. And I think the people who work with the thoughts the most are the mamos, because they are people that spend their lives making sacred pagamentos or offerings for the earth to restore balance on earth. And all of their work is with the power of thoughts. So I've been to their community and they got us to cleanse each of the elements. We spent 1 week there and we had to cleanse each of the elements. And so each of the elements was related to something that is happening in the world. For instance, fire related, very sacred element, but also the polar relation is violence, weapons, war. So we had to sit through each element and find those things in our lives first. All of the violence, all of the ways that we think, cleanse that. And then all of the violence in the world, cleanse that. And then all of the money that is spent in violence, pay it back. All of that through the power of our thought. We were doing that with cottons, sitting on a hard rock under the sun for 8 hours, fasting, doing that every single day. When we were imagining the cottons, they started to become so heavy. Our hands were like, oh my God, finding hard to sustain those cottons. And the life change that every single person in the group had by the end of that retreat was absolutely incredible. And the works with the mamos never cease to amaze me. You know, when they pay like fruit made of gold, pay back, fruits made of gold, you know. So every time I eat, this is what I do. I bless my food. If I'm eating a fish, I will imagine thousands of that same fish going back into the ocean and blessing, you know, through the palms of my hands, that energy is blessing and harmonizing my food. And this is what I do when I'm drinking water. I'm imagining more water sprouting out in the world and feeding other people. The mamos also taught me, when you're cleaning your home, when you're sweeping, imagine you're sweeping the corruption from your country, because all of this count in the sacred web of life. We're all connected. Everything that is alive is all connected. And everything we're putting in the collective is through our thoughts and prayers. And that's why prayers are so potent and powerful, because they move those connections in the web of life. So our every thought is contributing either to the contamination of the whole or to the cleansing of the whole. And our thoughts are our most powerful spiritual tool. Everything we think, we manifest within and all around.
So reflective in an idea that all the actions that we take have their own, in the butterfly effect is one that came to mind in with Cruz saying about the sweeping. I'm not only sweeping my house, I'm sweeping the outer house, the house that I am part of, the community, the government, the ideas, and everything has its own counterbalance. Your actions have power no matter how you choose to do them or use them. And it is a very important thing to realize. And also blessing your food. I do that every day, but you did it in a better way to understand that you're making more of them. I hope they have a better life and understand that I'm thankful for everybody that brought it to my plates. And then, but making more is a better way of viewing it, that more water creates itself in needing areas, and more fish are at a table of someone else that needs more because they're still filling the ocean that needs more when I took my fair share.
Yeah, I bless the hands of all the people that got there to me as well. I do all the things.
Oh yeah, you
For the
do
earth, for that
way.
abundance.
Yeah.
It's good because the more you do that, the more you vibrate in the energy of gratitude, right?
Mhm.
And whenever we're vibrating in gratitude, this is what the resonance the universe understands. It mirrors it. Oh, they need more of that. Here's more things to be grateful for. Whenever we're complaining, it also is bouncing back. Oh, they're focusing on that. They need more of it.
Yeah.
More of the things you're complaining for.
Exactly. You're like, and then the survival mechanism, they're like, are we surviving or are we thriving? And the difference between that is understanding how you appreciate and how you connect with things and how you value them, because it's so important. To small things are just as valuable as big things. And, you know, understanding their value to you in your life is profoundly impressive at one awareness, just that you have certain simple things that are beautiful to have, or to enjoy, or to see, or to be present for, or to connect with. So my last question is always, what is the hardest truth? And you mentioned it before, from the biggest difficulty in your life, and what were the key takeaways that you will use going forward?
Well, I think there were two major lessons in my life. That one was the suicide of my father when I was 16 years old, who was everything to me, was my world, right? And that really taught me a lot about accepting the lessons of life, accepting that I cannot trace or choose or change the path that someone else chose for themselves.
Yeah.
Yet I can find compassion to understand other people's choices and find the love to cherish whatever it is, the memory, in this case, of my father and all that he taught me, but then to build myself up inside, to not spend the rest of my life suffering for the grief that was not mine. It was my father's own grief that led him to do that. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life suffering for the lessons that he chose for himself, but to find acceptance, to work in myself, to release my own grief, to release my own generational trauma, in order that to find harmony for my own life. Because whatever I want to pass to my children is something else. I want to pass it to them, how to live in harmony, which, you know, they look at me, and this is what my daughter is copying. You know, she sees water, she starts blessing people with water. You know, she blesses her food by herself every day. She's two and a half. She goes out into the sun, she puts her hands up, you know, giving thanks for a new day. And this is what I wanted to pass it to them, you know, loving my father and finding this stillness, that this memory no longer triggers a response in me other than acceptance. So through these ways, through these indigenous practices and ways of the elders, I was able to find that acceptance, to find that harmony, to find that joy of life, to live inspired every day. And then, you know, a lesson that reaffirmed that was the first Aniwa gathering that was literally nearly fell apart. It was a lot to hold. Yeah. But it was spirit asking you, why do you want this? Why do you want to take? What are your reasons for doing this? Yeah. And the reasons reaffirming that whatever it is we believe in and that we know is right, sometimes we have to go through tests, and the tests keep coming. We just need to give it all to something that we believe in. And then whenever it opens in a really beautiful and big way, when we're doing something right, when we're doing something that is not just for us, it's for the planet, it's for the earth, it's to benefit others. We're always taken care of. always. So that trust is the biggest lesson. The trust that comes from the biggest challenges into knowing that I'm taken care of. It does, no matter what, always.
Yeah. Well, yeah, creating something like that is how your mission and your purpose and finding those, and then they become like your children. So, and now you have your children of your own in a physical form, but also the business and your purpose has a form of you have to be a responsible mother to take care of it and to protect it and to keep it consistently going forward, because it will test you and it will still give you some truth that you are ready for the challenge. And that's beautiful understanding and a beautiful wise words about healing ancestral trauma and your deep pursuit on your own journey to make sure that you're capable to go into your next phase, and then teaching your daughters how that you relate to your world and your life and your understanding of what you've been through, and make it in a better way that they have a different life without the triggers and traumas that you have made peace with, and the loss that you've lost a deep understanding of a fatherly figure that was so important to you. I appreciate your awareness and your vulnerability to share that with us today. And I am honored to have you. Vivien Vilela is an amazing creator of this amazing book, the Book of Sacred Ceremonies for the Sacred Earth, and it's by the Aniwa Council of Elders. And you can find all the information in the link in the bio. I recommend you check out what she's up to, and I hope to hear from you from retreats and experiences going forward in the future. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to invite everyone to join us and all of these elders at the Aniwa gathering. You can see the link. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Tranquility Magazine podcast. Please subscribe and add your questions to our Q&A. We want to give a thank you to our team for their effort in creating every episode and our content at tranquilitymagazine.com.